I met a friend recently, and they were like stop talking like that, or stop saying it that way, because it was like, I'm from criminals and I have to like detach or like not be that, and like they checked me on my language, and it was not anyone that not anyone that had been on this mental health journey with me. It was just like, finally I'm in a healthy place, and I'm meeting a new friend, and I'm making a new friend. And then I'm also feeling like I have no secrets, because I'm like, well, I have this book coming out. It's not one book, by the way, it's three. It's a 3-book deal. And so I'm like, I don't have to worry about these secrets anymore, because they're not secrets anymore.
Than me. There's a dirty little secret on me. I've been writing for 35 years.
Yeah.
I wrote dossiers on people that I've known. I mean, I've done all of this. Why? Because I was trying to make sense of things.
You got it.
But I don't have the courage to get published yet. You do.
It is never going to make sense.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing to let go.
That's what writing also does, is it helps you understand that there are just certain situations that's just never going to make sense.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a square peg in a round hole, and it doesn't fit.
And like that new friend, I realized like I need to build community. And part of what I was talking about with them is like, because it's like, you tell a little bit of recent backstory when you meet someone new. And I was like, I got really sick, I got physically sick, and then I got mentally sick. And all these people I thought that would show up for me dropped. And I realized they were only in my life because of what I could do for them, or the opportunity I created for them. And then all the people I didn't expect, like the few people I was like, oh my God, these people are here for me at like my darkest hour, where I'm like not able to give anything. And
they didn't want anything.
No, they didn't want anything. And then I was like...
Kind of hard for somebody that comes out of a transactional lifestyle like you and I. Because we're thinking all the time, what do you want from me?
Well, not even what I want from me, but I'm always like, okay, how can I get you paid and us paid and all of us paid? And this is what I bring to the table. I bring opportunity to the table. I bring hustle to the table. I bring strategy to the table. So let's figure out how we can all elevate and move up and get rich. And it's like, okay, yes. And a lot of that is from the back.
You damn right.
It's from the past. And it's coming up like, you want to say from the hood or whatever you want to call it. But I'm also so proud now of my city that I'm from.
Absolutely.
It's one of the darkest cities in America.
Town, baby.
And
until I lived in Coral Gables, and until you've gone to bed on a Saturday night, you're pop, 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 pop. You're going, what is that? Well, it sure ain't fireworks.
And that's Coral Gables.
That's Coral Gables. That's the nice part of town.
That's the nice part. Yeah, and I also, I don't know, like, I've learned I feel security in diverse spaces.
I do too.
And highly populated spaces. And also accepting that is where I feel security, and not questioning it, not trying to figure out why, not trying to figure out the backstory, not trying to go in through the whole analog, like kind of embracing this.
Just say, okay, this is it.
And this is who I am, and going into it. And then when you do that, the good people arrive in your life.
So it's
like a couple new people that I've connected with, some through the treatment center I've been in for like the past 2 years. Some, like I said, just are new people that are amazing humans that don't judge me for any, like literally now I'm ridiculously authentic. Not ridiculously, but I'm literally sitting in the coffee shop, tears coming down my eyes, and like...
You don't care.
Because this is what I'm feeling, and that's okay. And it's supposed, me writing these things is supposed to make me feel sad. Like, I'm so grateful for the sadness. And I go and I talk, you know, I go to group or whatever, and I'm like, these emotions, like, how do you all function? And they're looking around me like, because well, we're here.
And the reason why you have those emotions is, Christina, you went years without using them.
It wasn't
You
safe.
were shut down.
I was complete, and that disassociation muscle was born into me. And now I appreciate it. I've been in spaces with people that have been through horrible traumas. No one ever has the exact same trauma, but seriously horrible traumas.
Yeah, way worse than me.
I know tons, children now growing up in Congo, growing up in Gaza, are going through terrible, terrible extreme traumas. And if you don't have that innate disassociation muscle, your only resolve is usually addiction. Suicide or addiction.
Yeah. No, this is why I can't get mad at some of the people from my past, including my ex-wife. Yeah. She went through some horrible shit before she was 2 years of age. She was the child of two teenagers, a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, got married. I mean, I can't be pissed at her. People are like, aren't you mad at your ex-wife? I'm like, no, I don't have enough bandwidth. if I was pissed at her, I'd be pissed at so many people. That's all I do every day. For me, I just finally said, okay, look, they didn't get me, I didn't get me, I did a lot of people, I wouldn't necessarily say harm, but because we were just never on the same page.
Right.
Back to what you said, why I like Miami, why I like certain parts of Europe. It's totally acceptable. Nobody ever looks at me and thinks I'm different.
No.
But I can go to the Midwest and walk in a truck stop and get 5 glares, and I'm like, I'm from here, asshole. What are you giving me attitude for? I got cowboy boots in the closet up at the ranch. Don't even go there. The point is, it took both of us a little while to finally find our people. I remember when I was driving around in Miami right before you met me. You don't know this, but I was extremely agoraphobic when you first met me.
No, you told me this.
I was a mess.
Yeah.
And I literally started out by driving Uber.
Right.
In Broward and, Miami-Dade. I mean, I was...
Nothing makes you feel the warmth of humanity than the walk of shame getting your Uber or the completely vulnerable drunk person getting your Uber, and you're like, you're so dependent on me right now, and you're so vulnerable right now, and what an honor, and like, oh my God, you're trusting me in this moment of your life. And they won't even know who the fuck you are, remember your name. And I remember like that feeling when I was becoming American Red Cross instructor, and crisis management became such like a big, amazing part of my life, and then it turned into lifeguarding, and the only thing that stopped me from being like a beach guard instructor was my shoulder issues, which now are completely fixed. I've had surgeries on both shoulders, which was part of the physical healing. And so it was like even though, so it's funny because even CPR is a little different in places like Miami. As an instructor, if you literally, part of the instruction, I don't know if it's still now, but when I was teaching, part of the instruction was if you see someone on the ground side of the road, laid face down, or anywhere, like someone a stranger, you walk up, you don't go the traditional one where you go close to see if they're breathing. You kick their feet first.
See if they react.
Because it's a play to rape you or grab you and rob you. And I understood that, and I was comfortable with that, and I was comfortable with teaching women how to safely attend to people and how to protect themselves in these vulnerable situations. And I also felt like this great sense of humanity that even the most heinous person in the world can have a heart attack. Absolutely. And then I can save them.
Absolutely.
And it's this very visceral type, like it brings you down to the level of humanity that doesn't exist in the day-to-day.
Yep.
And I mean, I started out my journey in medicine pre-med. I went and viewed an autopsy. I was not that person. I could not, no, I did not want to detach that much from the body. But like that was like so powerful for me as American Red Cross instructor. Then as I couldn't work anymore and I got sick and I had to have like the hysterectomy and then the pelvic surgery, I let it go. I let the certifications go. But I think I did it for such a long time. And also I would always bring my son. A lot of times when he was younger, he would just come along and literally stand beside me and go pop, 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 and be like comic relief. The classes are much more tolerable now. There's videos. There's not me listening someone that talks a lot for 8 hours a touched in a part of me that was like, okay, also the control thing, right? And then I realized in crisis situations, I disassociate because
That's what you were taught.
And also that's what was in me to do. It's like
you go someplace else.
But I'm completely calm.
Yeah.
So like in the recent floods in Fort Lauderdale and last year, April 2023, I was living with my parents at the time, and like there was such a clarity and a calmness, and my parents are like walking around like
panicking.
Not so much, but just grabbing crazy things, and my mom's like, no, I'm not gonna leave the cats. And I'm like, we're gonna get the cats. Everyone's taking their cats, but the next time the rescue vehicle comes over, let's get in it, you know? And like able to talk to them in a way that's like comforting and encouraging, and I'm like super calm. Luckily, I was in the treatment program for mental health for 3 days a week at the time, because when I went back, like after floodwater seceded, which was not till like 5 days later, on our street, I was like, okay, like I'm there's gonna be symptoms, and now maybe I'll end up in the hospital again. And because like I stayed grounded there, like I got the assistance, I got the help, I got the interventions right when the trauma was happening. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And what happens is our society is not set up where you can go to a clinic when you have a cough, but you can't say, you can't.
Up here.
I'm hurting up here. I think I need some help, and then get the intervention, and then like be prepared when a trauma comes. You can go back to the same resource.
Sure.
You have doctors. I have doctors now because we've gone through physical health challenges, where if I have something, I can call my orthopedic and say like, I need you to get me in, and I'll get in within the same week because it's their established relationship. Well, if you go through a horrible trauma, a disaster, a natural disaster that is so
traumatic,
like everything is gone that you own, or someone suddenly dies because
there's no place to go.
It's like it's delayed.
Yeah.
So even when it does arrive, it's so delayed.
It's 6-8 weeks later because
that the
finally got
PTSD
into
has already started.
Exactly.
And if you have the interventions right there, and I'm not saying I know how to make that happen logistically in our world. I don't. I am so grateful that I already had it. But I experienced not having any elevated symptoms, not having any relapse physically, and going through an extreme trauma. And so it was like, okay, I can somehow do this maybe, but also I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
See, and it's amazing that you talk about that trauma, because we don't have a healthcare system that's able to grab everybody who has trauma and do what you've done or what I did. I talk about the big sheet notes, and I'm actually going to do a podcast just about big sheet notes because I think they were so important to my life to sit down and write that stuff down. It's really, really sad that people that go through unbelievable trauma, 9 times out of 10 are left to have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, and I can say that hasn't been my journey, thankfully.
For me, where I came from, I'll be honest with you, Christina.
And there may not still be, there probably aren't the support systems there
mental
still.
Health, no.
Again, why I feel comfortable in highly dense populations, because they do have the support services.
And there are people within these communities. I mean, I've got friends that I've been visiting the whole 10 days that I've been here in Miami this trip. I've got a lot of people that are like, come here, give you a hug.
Yeah.
They don't want anything from me, and they don't care that I was somebody. They don't care what I was.
No, it's who you are now.
It's who I am now.
Exactly.
And that's so bloody damn nice.
I am currently struggling. So a couple things I want to touch on.
Okay.
First of all, 3-book deal, bootstrap publishers, woman-owned, founded in Miami, the right place, and I'm not doing it alone.
Okay.
That was a major thing. I have a co-author.
Ghostwriter.
No.
Full
co-author.
Okay.
So this is a complete symbiotic relationship because of the healing.
Yep.
And she is, it makes sense on paper too. She has an English literature degree, very young. What am I gonna do with my life? We link up, and then I'm taking those old stories, and then we start writing. We start doing this before the publishing deal, and then this horrible manuscript I wrote, because I'm able to be and tell my experience and just arrive who I am and talk about it and write about it. I am not able to also be the person to turn that into an enjoyable read.
And I respect that, and I would be afraid to write my story, and this is why I would be afraid to write my particular story. I was such a wild ass. I mean, my best friend and I growing up, Christina, they literally could write movie scripts. And the problem with that is there came an inflection point about 2 or 3 years ago as I was going through this process, and I started to reflect back on some of that. And I said, no, I don't want to talk about that anymore. And the reason why I don't want to talk that, I can make it really entertaining. I should be dead. I mean, I'm on like Cat's Life number 15.
Please stop with the language.
Well, but
like this.
But listen to me. I don't want to glamorize what I did.
It's not.
I don't want to glamorize.
I think when you go through the healing,
the distortion of the booze and the guns and that whole Christian conservative mindset that I was in, I don't want to glorify that.
Well, the thing is like, I think that when you start on this healing process, and it starts this very individual, isolating process, because that's the only place you feel comfortable, the only way to go through it is in community.
Yeah. And
I do feel like for an American, it does partially need to be in the official medical community.
Yeah.
And that's a little biased, because that's what has been one of the major things that has got me through. And I also went back and forth, and I know through this writing process I will go back and forth, because I was taking responsibility of how people used my first book, and basically I was like, I don't want a bunch of pedophiles jacking off to this.
Right.
And I laughed because I literally saw that as my responsibility. And now what I see as my responsibility, number one, is my own healing and feeling all my emotions and expressing all my emotions. Being real. And the one emotion I haven't been able to tap into yet regarding my early childhood trauma is anger. And part of that was taught out of me too. I was taught, you get angry, you get caught.
Yeah.
Someone wrongs you.
You get angry, you do stupid things. You're not in control when you're angry.
I was obviously going to be a woman. I was a woman, born a woman, will be a woman. So was taught, you don't get angry. Someone wrongs you, you find the biggest thing you can pick up, and you hit them with it as hard as you can. Or you take it and you smile and you figure out how to do it at a later time.
The vindictive.
And like complete disassociation from anger. Complete. So when I was, and this is more in the second, this is that cute little picture over there.
Age 16?
Extremely violent.
Really?
Yeah. I know I don't look it, but yes, extremely violent, because I was taught to be extremely violent. And it's easy to navigate life and get away with it and get away with things and be violent when you're a woman and you're not a dude young age. But there were some times where if I was not with people saying, what the fuck are you doing, Christina? Like you
keep you in check.
Violence was like my language of expression to keep things safe for me.
Yep.
And then when my son was born, I realized I couldn't behave this way anymore.
Yep.
And I didn't disassociate, my body didn't disassociate any of that birth pain. I felt all the pains. I had been doing yoga since 19. I was introducing yoga at the college. And so did yoga every week. My plan was to meditate through labor. Horrible plan. I'm heavily advocate for epidurals. But what ended up happening is my whole life from like that's from age 12 to 17. When I was in therapy at the Sexual Assault Treatment Center, it was court ordered. My mom take me every week. Therapists say, what do you want? I want to be normal. I want to have a boyfriend. I want to grow up. I want to get college. I want to get married. I want to have a kid. I just want to have a normal life.
Yep.
I don't want anyone to look at me and be able to tell what I've been through.
Yep.
And she tried, I think, so hard for that not to be my answer. But I'm so ambitious.
You're gonna do it.
I was like, I'm gonna meet this goal. And like birthing my son was the beginning of that goal. His father and I were not together when I had my son. It was we had already broken up, and then he called me to go on a date. It was like his birthday. We went out. 3 months later, I found out I'm pregnant. 5 months later, I call him and I'm like, "You're having a baby," and he's like, "Why are you calling? Who's this?" Like, what? Like, who are you? But he had grown up in his own crazy family dynamic, and he had decided that whoever if there was ever a child, he would be there consistently every day. And then what happened is it's really hard to date when you have your baby's daddy at your house actively involved with your child. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he was there passively or he was just there to maybe get some. He was dad. And I respected that so much. And so eventually when my son was 8, we got married. I mean, we lived together way before he was 8. And recently it's funny because me and my ex, he decided he wanted to go no contact. I respect that. It's too much for him. He saw us together forever. And something happened to me. It was a non-negotiable. Like, it was like, no, I can't come back from this. Did couples therapy for like almost a year, and I was just like, I'm not going to get past from this, and I want to be able to forgive you. In order to do that, we have to get divorced and move on. But I wanted the story of now my ex-husband's my best friend,
right?
And he was like, I can't do that for you, and I have to accept that. So having this conversation with my son was heavy in my heart. My son is now 24 in Hawaii, starting U of H Manoa Astrophysics in January. Little plug, like whenever I am the person, like if I can get in, my son who lives in Hawaii, like everyone, all strangers know my son who lives in Hawaii. But he's like trying to explain to me why he doesn't give a fuck, and I'm not getting it because he's like not gonna just say it that way. And he's like, okay, you were my parents, and then you got married when I was 8. And now you're divorced, and this past year you somehow figure out a way to argue remotely through me while I'm in Hawaii. He's like, you're still my parents.
Yep.
And I just needed to hear that. And so then I was like confirmed, because I've been through this therapy. I was like, okay, so what I'm hearing you're telling me, I think what you're saying is that like you're just glad we're not arguing anymore. And he's like, yeah, like you'll always be my parents. Like you weren't even... You got married when I was 8. I was at your wedding. It doesn't change who you guys are. And I couldn't see that until he said it to me. And then after that conversation, the guilt and the internal dialogue of like, how could I have reached the goal of normalcy, of stability? I must be fooling myself. There's no way my son's okay. There's all this. I'm going through all this symptoms and trauma now, like I'm processing all this, I must have been cold and distant to him, like all of this, and like that simple conversation, it all went away. Yep. And being able to have that conversation was a result of going through DBT.
And along those lines, so what you just painted a picture of in your marriage was probably a little dysfunctional.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, and I looked at my marriage, and I had gone out in the world and recreated a dysfunctional life just exactly like the one that I'd came out of. Everything just, it fit. Why not? I was 30 years old. It's time to get married. Yeah, she understands what I understand. Just so happened that the things that she understood and that I understood in the same levels were probably things that most people didn't really need to know anything about.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just raised tough. But for me now, we used the word hypervigilant a little bit ago. The other thing with me is, along that line of hypervigilance, man, as soon as I hear toxic, as soon as I hear dysfunction, it's not necessarily that I shut them out, but it's like,
again, it's the self-acceptance piece.
Yep.
Because look,
I've done so damn much work on myself, I'm not going to share this with somebody who doesn't get that. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I think like just diving deeper, I know I've had to have a deeper dive of healing in myself for good people to arrive in my life. And it's like I can't even see the toxic people, and some of the good people that arrived in my life, there's red flags. I'm like, I know this person, like I know this person is not the person I can depend on for XYZ.
Right.
I know this person, is not willing to go there and fix themselves in a certain way. And yet, it's not, it's like, there's like toxic and socio and psychopath, and then there's just human. And flawed humans.
Flawed humans. And we live in a world.
And that's what we want to get to. A circle of flawed humans.
I'm fine with the flawed humans. It's the sociopaths and the really, really scary, screwed up people that scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And those, I have looked those people straight in the eye, and ain't no way I'm going back to that.
Yeah.
No way. I mean, I remember when I was first here in Miami, I used to drive around with a notepad on my passenger seat, just trying to sort through things. And I remember one day I wrote down, be patient, work hard, and good people will find you. Wow, what a prescient statement to make. And that's so true.
Yes.
Now when I see the warning signs, I make a choice. One of my fatal flaws, one of my toxic traits was I had this idea that you needed to work with everybody regardless of how screwed up they were. Yeah. And that was really where the rubber hit the road in my life 5, 6, 7 years ago. I was at the top of my game. I was as powerful as a human being could ever dream of being. And it was in that moment that I looked around and I said, well, this is probably a deal with the devil. This is probably a toxic marriage that you've created in your mind of power, wealth, and all of that. And I didn't want that anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. So, well, Christina, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll do more of these.
Okay.
I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate the fact that you've been here for 5 years. We text each other from time to time, and I've seen a huge change in you in just the past 3 or 4 months. You probably don't realize it, but I
realize it.
I can see it in the things that you put out in the public sphere. I'm like, oh wow, she's shifting gears.
Yeah, and it's a difficult dance because I don't want to not put what people will say negative. To me now it's not negative, it's heavy, it's emotional, it's tough. So there's some things I'm gonna start doing, intentional things like with the writing when I am writing, because now our system with my co-author is I just write.
Brain dump. You do a brain dump.
Well, no, I just write like a scenario, like a memory. And then because it's like so extreme trauma, there's some like conversation, and then my co-author is like, well, what'll help me is describing the full setting, and I can do that, which also shows that it's burned into that trauma storage of your brain, and the goal is to move the memory, to loosen up the memory, process the memory, and move the memory. However that you do that, whether it's through EMDR, whether it's through somatic, whether it's through, different modalities, but that's the